My teacher
Not one person, but one.
in 6th grade told us, I was at a Christian school, the world's getting bad, kids. The tribulation's on the way. American Airlines and Continental have merged into One World Airlines, bringing on the One World government. That was my 6th grade teacher. So that's the state of our world. Hello and welcome to America the Conversation. I am one of your hosts, Tim Philippi, and with me, as always, is Andrew Turner. Andrew, what is the state of this podcast?
Tim.
Andrew.
Mr. Philippi. Madam Lady Luck. Listeners of this podcast and my fellow leftists, the state of our podcast is desperate. We really need you to go to the Patreon, send us some cash.
Lord,
could you share it? That'd be great.
Subscribe on America the Podcast.
Give us stars. Yeah, that'd be great. Hit the bell.
We're even gonna have a whole separate leftist podcast clip channel for you guys to like as well. So go. Yeah. We want your money. Despite being communist, we desperately need your money. But as desperately as Joe Biden needs your support. Good transition, bad transition. I don't really think. I don't know what to think. I need the government to tell me what to think.
Sure.
But sure, they don't. Or do they? I don't know. I don't think I'll ever know. But today we're talking about the State of the Union and how well Joe Biden did. And I will say, cheers to Adderall or whatever shit they gave him. Because that was what was the New York
I'm on
Post?
Vyvanse 40 milligrams.
He's alive.
I assume he's got to be doing double that. I'm a big boy, but I'm young, at least still. 35, I guess I'm not young, but I'm younger than Joe Biden. They got to be pumping him full of the good stuff. Did you see there was a Rolling Stone article? And this came out 6 months ago, but they did a recent update in the last few weeks, I think, that was about the pill mill. The
Trump administration pill
Trump
mill.
Administration. Yeah, they were just handing out pills to anybody who asked. The doctor.
We filled everything anybody asked for. I think it was the quote or something along those lines.
That's awesome.
And I'm awesome. Jesus Christ.
I need, just pure
any
pharmaceutically prescribed
and we do not advocate that but sometimes we dream about it, much like suburban white women and white men and
I have
suburban
no problem with people using drugs responsibly if they can. If they're not having a problem with that, no matter whether they're pharmacy or not. But I certainly think it's pretty funny that the same man who's threatening to execute drug dealers for selling pot,
oh my God,
is snorting Adderall and who knows what else, Trump
having every prescription filled. Oh my God.
Yeah, he was definitely on point to not step away too far from what you were saying. He had the expectations were low. It was pretty much stay awake, seem
like I said,
do not seem like a corpse. And he did that.
The New York Post I think, headline was "He's alive." I don't know if that was an SNL joke or if that was real, but I'm pretty sure that was the headline.
Either way, that was the level of expectation. Yeah. Is he going to get up there and seem like he's in it and with it? And he did. He hit a lot of very good talking points if he pushes them in a second term, which is what he needs to be doing right now, is sharing his successes and then giving us promises,
Yeah.
And I think that, like I said, he beat expectations. I think that conservatives didn't really know how to respond to that as a media group, at least.
Oh,
because the first responses I saw is he's so loud and he's talking so fast. And it's y'all have been spending the last 4 years telling us how slow he talks and how he messes up all his words and how he's a doddering old fool. And now it's that he's too aggressive and loud and mean. Come on.
So the contrary to that, though, that's the response you heard. Well, apparently the Trump's response was he's not getting any of his words out. He's talking too slow. So fucking which is it, dude?
They don't have their talking points.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, yeah. And then some.
And we'll talk about that didn't have their talking points for their response to the State of the Union together on how that was going to be.
Response. I could talk about Katie Britt for 49 years. And God. Oh man, Megyn Kelly's response to that was the best one of all things. I hate to give props to Megyn Kelly, but go watch her response. We're not going to play it here because I don't want to give her any playtime. But
Megyn Kelly is like a broken clock.
She is.
She's right every now and then.
Twice a day, man. Yeah. So, yeah,
I wouldn't give her that much.
What were the things you were hoping he would at least talk about, and that he did, I guess, during the State of the Union?
Yeah. I mean, like, dude, I wish he would have come out and said he was going to nationalize the train industry and the oil industry. But I don't think we could sit here for 2 days and listen to things I want him to come out and say.
A bit more of a populist tone he took this time, because he's about to go into his second term, and fuck it.
And I want to point this out because we get a lot of criticism from liberals about our criticism of Joe Biden, which I think is erroneous on y'all's part, if I'm being honest, because just because they're the better option of two options doesn't mean we don't have to hold them accountable, and we don't have to make demands of the people who work for us, But that being said, it's not fuel. I don't believe in fealty to like some politician or name. I believe in policies and enacting those. But
it's kind of what the country is founded on. Not bending the knee to literally anyone.
Hero worship. Yeah. I don't believe in idolatry. I think
it's a sin. Believe it or not, it's a sin.
Yeah. I think all of them have flaws and all mess up sometimes. But that being said, I think that we get a lot of attacks from liberals for criticizing Joe Biden, and then we get a lot of attacks from conservatives, especially MAGA chuds, for usually it's just like, y'all are so dumb, laugh, cry emoji 8 times.
Yeah.
Like they all tweet like Elon Musk and comment
they
like
do.
Elon
Musk.
No, it's amazing.
No value to the conversation is being added like every time. Like, you're dumb. Like, okay.
But the thing that we don't probably do enough that I should do more is give credit to Joe Biden where it is due. And I will say that when it comes to the populist measures that he has done, he needs to do 10 times more. But the populist measures he has done, he has been a monumentally progressive president when it comes to like the populist workers angle of things.
Yeah.
And I think that continued in this speech for sure. And we're going to dive into specifically what policies I really like that he was announcing and pushing for. But he did strike a tone of, for the first time, I think, in this campaign of, hey, look, I got stuff to hand out. Like, I got stuff to give. I got things to change.
Send me the bill. Like, I loved sassy Joe Biden during like,
I mean, it's smart.
Ribbing the Republicans. That was great. Like, oh, you don't like that? Oh, you don't think I had a bill? I did have a bill. Basically, like, dude, we'll get to it.
It was a horrible fucking draconian.
It was a bad bill. Yes, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
As leftists,
and I don't think it was smart political strategy. But nonetheless, I think everyone will forget about it either way in 6 months. So. But Joe Biden, when he was walking on that picket line.
Yeah, I was about to say he's the first and only president to ever stand on a picket line. Like huge,
and which is why you asked Sean Fain's endorsement straight up.
Yeah.
And that may win in Michigan, like that may
hopefully,
make up
and
for
the fact that he's
divide from a lot of the Muslim community.
Chilling out.
I'm not sure it will, but.
He's chilling out. At least he wanted to open up the port in Gaza. That's one thing he talked about in his speech, which had already been talked about before.
Dive into that. I'm gonna jump in now before we both go off on tangents.
Sure. Yeah.
The first one we have here is a clip of Brandon here talking about the biggest threat to democracy, Donald Trump and his followers. I would argue his followers more than him. That there is a rising tide of authoritarian worship and want for totalitarian Western Christian white theocracy, white supremacist theocracy. And he addresses those people here.
History is watching, just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th, when insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger to the throat of American democracy. Many of you are here on that darkest of days. We all saw with our own eyes the insurrectionists were not patriots. They'd come to stop the peaceful transfer of power, to overturn the will of the people. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. But they failed. America stood. America stood strong, and democracy prevailed. We must be honest. The threat to democracy must be defended. My predecessor and some of you here seek to bury the truth about January 6th. I will not do that. This is the moment to speak the truth and to bury the lies. Here's the simple truth. You can't love your country only when you win.
I think that was important. I think that calling those people out, the president should do that more often. And he should paint the Republican Party as a whole as beholden to those people. Because I think people are scared of crazy people who will storm Capitol buildings with no plan, trying to stop the legitimate transfer of power.
I mean, they came into the building. Let's not forget, because apparently there's a whole collective amnesia on Donald Trump in the first place and January 6th. They came in with zip ties. Like, they came in with tactical gear. They shit on people's desks. They sent people into the catacombs. They tried to kill the vice president and built gallows outside. Like, this was not just some, our listeners also know this. I'm preaching to the choir, but like, it's baffling as fuck to me that this is like, that was just a peaceful, what was it called? An unsupervised tour of the White House. Wowza.
It's so like, don't believe your lying eyes, right? Because like, I remember that day. I remember watching it live with my friends, like trying to find gallows humor, quite literally. In it.
Yeah, fair enough.
I remember being legitimately scared, not like clutching my pearls scared, but like, oh shit, this may be a huge moment in American history, which I mean it is, but like bigger than I even thought it was going to be, because I was worried that there were going to be Congress people who were killed,
actually
like,
killed,
straight up. And I was worried that there was more to it that we didn't see, that was behind the scenes, right? Like Trump was making moves, like who knows what, when getting Congress people, like threatening them and telling him he would send the mob their way if they didn't vote, to put his name in actually, or to rerun the election. And we did see afterwards that there was a coordinated effort to actually do a lot of that under Roger Stone and a few others.
Mike Johnson, the man sitting right behind Joe Biden, sitting there, like,
was involved in that as well. But I mean, like, I think that it was really Steve Bannon, Roger Stone. Who's the vampire one? The vampire Nazi, the Nosferatu Nazi.
Oh my God.
Stephen Miller.
Stephen Miller. Yeah.
God, I'm going to know that name on my deathbed. What a horrible life I've chosen.
Stephen Miller survives. Because he will. Because he drinks blood.
He is a cockroach.
He's a vampire person.
I think those probably are the people who rant the most. There certainly were a lot of Congress people involved in it who knew it was going down. But he needs to come out and call these people out for this more often. This was a cavalcade of errors, a parade of mistakes and dumpster fires. But if it had been successful, it would have meant the end of the Democratic Republic. It would have been the end of the peaceful transfer of power. And that means the end of the democracy, just like it did under Caesar.
Would the military not have done something there, though? Like, I mean, is there no protocol for? I guess there's really not.
A civil war, because half the military might make that decision, and then half the military stays with the president.
Yeah,
fair enough. You're just talking about a civil war. At that point.
That is a civil war at that point. Coming out April from A24.
Sponsored podcast. Yeah.
If only, or not. I don't know. That movie's I'm gonna have a lot of anxiety after that movie.
Like
really good or really dumb
that I didn't expect, or it's going to be one of the worst movies about American politics ever.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see Nick Offerman get potentially dragged out of it. I see it. There's a scene in it where he gets dragged from under the Resolute desk that they showed in the trailer for some reason. I'm like, why would you show that? That's definitely a big part of the movie, but whatever. It's like, oh, fuck. He's getting dragged out.
I know what's going to happen, right? Like, I know the ending of the movie. You could have ended the sentence. I'm excited to see Nick Swartzen, but
I'm not excited to see Nick Swartzen in general.
Oh, okay. I want to see how he plays a conservative right-wing president. Like, that sounds
for someone who is more leftist than us, probably.
They could be like, it's actually a Democrat, a liberal.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's sometimes that's the only way they get away with doing that. There's one movie that were like, you couldn't have done it with a Republican or wouldn't have been funny.
I will say to the audience, probably around this summer, listen for maybe a pop culture and politics podcast Tim and I are talking about producing, where we dive into movies and comics and video games and art in general, music in general, to talk about how, there is politics in the things that you may not want politics in, whether that be sports or.
Can't believe they're making X-Men woke nowadays.
Yeah, that not woke X-Men.
You mean the allegory for the LGBTQ
thing that's a metaphor
movement?
For civil rights.
Civil rights movement.
Where the two main characters are representations of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King.
Oh my God.
Where the main bad guy is a sympathetic villain because he was in the Holocaust and he likes killing fascists.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
He's going about this pretty bad.
Yeah, you watch X-Men 1 and then see which side you land on in that movie, because you're not like, oh yeah, all those people on Ellis Island.
The same with like Killmonger and
oh
Black
yeah,
Panther,
Killmonger.
Yeah, he has a point. I mean, I disagree with how he's going about it, but
yeah.
And you know, we tie that into like Malcolm X's point and Martin Luther King's point of saying, well, the white moderate who is approving of what we want to do, but never approving of how we get it done, the direct action. Mm-hmm. Funny, you know. I mean, point being, pop culture and politics is something we're looking and doing, and once we come up with a flashy name and I come up with a way to organize it, we're going to do it.
Sure,
but I think that addressing January 6th was huge, right? Like, it doesn't need to be something that's swept under the rug. This needs to be something that we're holding the Congress people who stay elected in this accountable for the next decade, you know, if they're in Congress. Like, say, well, you were involved in that, weren't you?
Yeah.
I think that it was truly the first existential threat to at least the idea of elections and like an elected government, you know, in the United States in our history. And it needs to be called out. So I'm glad he hit Jan 6, but we do have a lot more to cover. So is there anything else you want to talk about on Jan 6?
No, I mean, it was awful, bad, and we should be holding those people actually accountable, which we are, but not any of the senators that helped organize it, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ted Cruz.
I just want to say, do you
Mike Johnson. Like,
do you remember Mitch McConnell like saying like this disqualified Trump and like,
sure, and then he just endorsed him.
Like, yeah. It's just funny how like everyone in the nation that wasn't a complete far right nut job on January 6th was like, yep, this is horrible. Yep, he can never be president again. Yeah, absolutely. We're moving away from this. And then less than a week later.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing to me.
Yeah.
But the next thing that Joe Biden talked about, which is, you know, huge on the list, definitely top 5 issues, was reproductive rights and what's going to happen under a Biden administration. If a bill is put on his desk to either ban abortion or make it legal nationwide. Let's go ahead and watch that.
It's not hyperbole to suggest history is watching. We're watching. Your children and grandchildren will read about this day and what we do. History is watching another assault on freedom. Joining us tonight is Latoya Beasley, a social worker from Birmingham, Alabama. 14 months ago, she and her husband welcomed a baby girl thanks to the miracle of IVF. She scheduled treatments to have that second child, but the Alabama Supreme Court shut down IVF treatments across the state, unleashed by a Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. She was told her dream would have to wait. What her family had got through should never have happened. Unless Congress acts, it could happen again. So tonight, let's stand up for families like hers. To my friends across the aisle, don't keep this waiting any longer. Guarantee the right to AVF. Guarantee it nationwide. Like most Americans, I believe Roe v. Wade got it right. I thank Vice President Harris for being an incredible leader, defending reproductive freedom, and so much more. Thank you. My predecessor came to office determined to see Roe v. Wade overturned. He's the reason it was overturned, and he brags about it. Look at the chaos that has resulted. Joining us tonight is Kate Cox, the wife and mother from Dallas. She's become pregnant again and had a fetus of a fatal condition. Her doctor told Kate that her own life and her ability to have children in the future were at risk if she didn't act. Because Texas law banned her ability to act, Kate and her husband had to leave the state to get what she needed. What her family got through should have never happened as well, but it's happening in too many others. There are state laws banning the freedom to choose, criminalizing doctors, forcing survivors of rape and incest to leave their states to get the treatment they need. Many of you in this chamber and my predecessor are promising to pass a national ban on reproductive freedom. My God, what freedom else would you take away? Look, it's a decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court majority wrote the following, and with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about that. Clearly, those bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women. But they found out when reproductive freedom was on the ballot. We won in 2022 and 2020, and we'll win again in 2024.
I think that this was a wise move. This is going to be the issue that wins Biden the election, if any issue does.
Yeah.
This is the issue.
Power women, dude.
This is going to turn, I think, a lot of traditionally moderate, centrist, moderate conservative women that don't really care about politics that much. You know, they vote every year. They think it's important because they grew up doing it and their parents did it, but they don't really watch MSNBC or CNN. These women and the men who love them and the women who love them, at least bisexual and straight women, they are worried about this, like worried about their daughters, worried about their sisters, worried about themselves. And a lot of their partners are too, that if not only even if they had consensual sex and got pregnant, but rape, incest, like all sorts of medical conditions that this could lead to. Both the death of a child already that's going to happen, or a fetus rather, depending on the stage, I suppose, and what you believe, and the mother now as well, when they could have been saved, when a medical procedure would be done. This is even coming down to IFV, like in fetal viruses. I'm sorry,
you're good.
I'm tripping up on my words. I'm biting hard here. This is even coming up with like frozen embryos now that they're trying to ban in certain states. So
Alabama, they just passed as of today, or yes, it had to have been today, I would assume, or at least over the weekend. The governor signed something that no doctor in Alabama can suffer legal consequences for any of this. Now they're not legally liable. So that IVF has continued in Alabama, but still, I mean, what was the judge's thing? Extra uterine people or something like that. Extra uterine infants or something was what they called them. It's just
GOP will protect you until you're out of the womb, and then you're on your own, kid. Don't know what to tell you. Screw your school.
How do they rationalize this? Because even and we're going to again get to her in a bit, but like in Katie Britt's response, like saying that they're all fighting for IVF. I'm like, but you didn't in Alabama. Like, where were you in Alabama if you're all fighting for IVF, and that is a huge swath of your electoral base? Like,
because they
people, your base believes that shit. Like,
because they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want a political win on both sides, right?
Yes,
they want to be able to give their base something that tackles the abortion issue that their religious, theocratic, evangelical base, that part of the party, that wing of the tent, or that wing of the party, and that section of the tent, they want to give them a win. But they also don't want to come off as completely insane. Even though that's what their base believes. Like, their base believes that women should be told that they cannot in any way interfere with the birthing process, because that's what they were created to do by God, was to reproduce children for the Lord and Savior. And that fetus, that embryo, that they couldn't tell the difference if it was an elephant or a dolphin or a human at that point.
Cannot. Yep.
That is alive because it has a soul in it. Well, I'm not sure souls exist. I believe they do. I'm a very spiritual person. We could talk about that sometime, what I believe, but I do not I can't prove it. And I don't think that we should legislate based off beliefs. I think that we should legislate based off facts. And until that fact is proven that something has a soul, I think until something is conscious, it's not alive. Until it can think at some level and on its own and survive outside the womb viably on its own, I think that it is a continuation of the mother until that point, right?
Yeah.
If you cannot survive without somebody feeding you bottles, sure, like giving you milk and food, but like if you can't survive with eating and sleeping on your own and consciously moving around and making decisions. Like, I don't think it's the same as a birthed living child.
Yeah.
But the conservative far right evangelical base does. And so if you truly believe that, then what is the moral argument except we have to ban it completely because you're killing children?
Yeah.
And
right. If someone trips over a fridge plug, it's a genocide.
Yeah. Well, and Hassan Piker has a great analogy for this to always use in these type of arguments to really make people reframe this, and be legitimate when they think about it. Okay, you are in a hospital. You wake up in a hospital bed. Everyone's evacuated the hospital. You're waking up to a fire alarm. Flames are everywhere. You hear a crying baby down the medical ward highway, and you run, and you see that there's that crying baby there behind one door, and then there's a lab full of tens of thousands of fertilized and unfertilized eggs on a door to your left. Which do you save in the fire if you have 30 seconds?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you go and save all the fertilized eggs, or do you save the screaming child that's obviously alive right there? You grab the baby because it's a baby. Because eggs and sperm are not babies. They're cells. They're cells that are dividing at a rapid rate, sure. But abortion is always going to be a tense issue. Yeah. But the actual politics of it is that the GOP doesn't want to come off as crazy right-wing because most people do not agree with the sentiment that a zygote is a child. Most people think that women should have at least some right to choose.
See, and that's the thing. Like, that's why I have some hope, despite Biden not doing well in the polls, that people do view them as the crazies, because that's every Republican I've ever spoken with who's a normal ass person is like, they're the party. Everybody thinks we're the party of the crazies. Like everybody's points us in the party of the crazies. Like so much
Democrats in the 70s.
Sure. But there was, and fact check if this ever actually went through, but I believe it was Arizona or Arizona or Oklahoma, where somebody tried to pass a bill, or if it passed, it wouldn't surprise me that conception begins 2 weeks before conception, or life begins 2 weeks before conception, because that's when I guess God put things in motion. I don't know. I'm reaching here.
I mean, they're gonna that's push what as hard as they can in order to control women's bodies, control them as a political force. I mean, you hear the fuck, and this is the same. Like, you're not going to hear even moderate or even conservative members of Congress come out and say we should end no fault divorce. We should allow men to marry women and girls that are 16, 15 years old. But the far right says shit like that.
Yeah.
You go listen to Nick Fuentes, you go listen to some fucking Nazis.
They passed laws that are allowed for things like that too. I mean, before before gay marriage was legalized, marriage equality, it was legal to have sex with animals in Arkansas or something like that. You could have sex with animals in more states than you could marry your spouse, basically. Is what it's the article I saw years and years and years ago. But and those laws I would hope have changed at this point, but still.
Sure.
That's conservatism in a nutshell. If you want to agree with fuck all of you conservatives.
I think in the end, it is. Ones. So there's three different sects of why they want to do this, right? One is wanting to appease the base. One is just whatever the base says and they want, we're trying to give them some red meat. The other is, this is religious, and they truly believe this in their heart of hearts. And if you believe that, I understand that you couldn't do anything except say, we have to save the babies. I disagree, but I get their at least philosophical concept behind that. And then there's a third group, which is more insidious, but is there, which want to actually control women. This is a pathway to pull back the vote. And you hear this from the far right saying well, maybe we shouldn't have let women vote all the time. And
there's a future episode of the show where we're going to dive deep into that with one very specific politician calling for women not to be able to vote in North Carolina. We see you out there.
The future governor of North Carolina, maybe. But yeah, I think that that there is a war on women, right? I think that's something that Biden should bring back as a phrase. Obama used that well. I think
there's a band called that too that was really great. Three women down here in Austin formed a folk band a protest band called the War on Women.
Hey, go listen to the War on Women. Well, up next, but I guess to summarize my thoughts there is this is going to be the issue that gets a lot of moderates and people who would normally vote Republican to vote for Joe Biden in those suburban areas, in those college-educated voters demographic. And this may be what wins him the election. It was certainly what won Democrats in 2022, the upset victories that they got in the midterms.
What was that podcast that keeps saying if the Democrats would just run on abortion, they would win the election? Oh, America the Conversation. That's right. Okay, what's the next clip? We were right.
We were right.
Sorry.
We were right.
Well,
yes,
not yet. We will find out in November, but we will be right then. So,
unfortunately, the last Biden clip we have before we get to the Republican response is where Biden really, he did one very, very good thing with it, and then the rest of it was completely nothing, just a nothing burger.
What is this clip?
Hey, we're going to let our friends keep committing genocide. We will build a port, though, to bring some food in and some water in, since Israel will not let that happen.
He really both sides this shit. But
this was a both sides moment. If I
hard both sides.
By God, this was a both sides moment. But let's go ahead and check that out now.
This crisis began on October 7th with a massacre by a terrorist group called Hamas, as you all know.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. The apartheid has been going on since the 60s. The exodus of Palestinians without their consent from their homeland has been going on since the 30s. So no, it didn't start on January 7th or October 7th. It started decades ago. But I'll let him continue.
Yeah, let him go. Let's hear the man.
200 innocent people, women and girls, men and boys, slaughtered after enduring sexual violence. The deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Children. And 250 hostages taken. Here in this chamber tonight are families whose loved ones are still being held by Hamas. I pledge to all the families that we will not rest until we bring every one of your loved ones home. We also...
Then we do a ceasefire. Israel is currently killing hostages, whether they intend to or not.
We will also work around the clock to bring home Evan and Paul, Americans being unjustly detained by the Russians and others around the world. Israel has the right to go after Hamas. Hamas ended this conflict by releasing hostages, laying down arms, could end it by releasing the hostages, laying down arms, and surrendering those responsible for October 7th. But Israel has Israel has a added burden because Hamas hides and operates among the civilian population like cowards, under hospitals, daycare centers, and all the like. Israel also has a fundamental responsibility, though, to protect innocent civilians in Gaza.
35,000 dead.
This war...
How many of them are Hamas? Versus mothers, brothers, fathers, sisters.
Has taken a greater toll on innocent civilians than all previous wars in Gaza combined. More than 30,000 Palestinians have been killed, most of whom are not Hamas. Thousands and thousands of innocents, women and children, girls and boys, also orphaned. Nearly 2 million more Palestinians under bombardment or displacement. Homes destroyed, neighborhoods in rubble, cities in ruin. Families without food, water, medicine. It's heartbreaking. I've been working nonstop to establish an immediate ceasefire that would last for 6 weeks to get all the prisoners released, all the hostages released, to get the hostages home and ease the intolerable and humanitarian crisis and build toward an enduring, something more enduring. The United States has been leading international efforts to get more humanitarian assistance to Gaza. Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters. No U.S. boots will be on the ground. A temporary pier will enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza every day. And Israel must do its part. Israel must allow more aid into Gaza to ensure humanitarian workers aren't caught in the crossfire. And they're announcing they're going to have a crossing in northern Gaza. For the leadership of Israel, I say this: humanitarian assistance cannot be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip. Protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority. As we look to the future, the only real solution to the situation is a two-state solution over time. And I say this as a lifelong supporter of Israel. My entire career, no one has a stronger record with Israel than I do. I challenge any of you here. I'm the only American president of Israel in wartime. But there is no other path that guarantees Israel's security and democracy. There is no other path that guarantees Palestinians can live in peace with peace and dignity. And there's no other path that guarantees peace between Israel and all of its neighbors, including Saudi Arabia, with whom I'm talking. Creating stability in the Middle East also means containing the threat posed by Iran. That's why I built a coalition of more than a dozen countries to defend international shipping and freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. I've ordered strikes to degrade the Houthi capability and defend U.S. forces in the region. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not hesitate to direct further measures to protect our people and our military personnel.
Some good and some bad, some very good and some very bad.
Yeah.
Let me state that he kind of gave away the game and his own bullshit with the 6 weeks ceasefire, because he was like, if all the hostages are released, this would end, right?
Sure.
That was his first point, is that this is up to Hamas, not Israel, to end this. That if they released all their hostages, this would end.
Yeah.
I don't think that. I don't think this would end at all if they released all the hostages today, right now. And he doesn't either. And you know how I know that? Because then he pushed for a 6-week ceasefire in which all the hostages would have to be released. And then what happens after 6 weeks? The ceasefire ends. So Israel can continue to bomb Gaza, even if they got all their hostages back.
Yeah, that's why those people were holding their little lasting ceasefire signs.
That's what we need. We need a lasting ceasefire.
Yeah.
We need to tell
not people to hold up little
longer
signs. That's the do nothing liberal that King was talking about, by the way. But you know, just I'm going to hold up my little sign.
I mean, Rashid Tlaib and a lot of the people there that were holding those signs actually are fighting for it. Some of them have been censored, because of saying, you know, from the river to the sea. So I would say that those people are probably the only people in Congress even fighting for the average Palestinian.
Yeah.
Those people holding those signs. It was performative, but the whole State of the Union is performative. That's the point of the State of the Union.
It is. Especially Mike Johnson. Anytime he said predecessor, Mike Johnson would shake his head. I'm like, dude, are you fucking for real? Like, he looks like the smarmiest son of a bitch I've ever seen in my life.
Nobody can beat Nancy ripping up the papers.
Oh,
that was so
I don't know. It's his.
Or you lie to Obama. That was pretty bad when somebody yelled out "you lie" for the first time, and we realized, oh wait, no one has decorum anymore.
Yeah, no one has decorum.
But yeah, I think that building a port is a great idea. Israel's saying they're going to open northern Gaza crossings. Israel says a lot of stuff that is just not.
I don't
true,
believe a thing they say.
I do not
believe
trust
when
the
I see
Netanyahu
it
government at all. And that's another thing, is like Bibi Netanyahu does not like Joe Biden. He wants Donald Trump to be president. Bibi Netanyahu is not working in Joe Biden's interest with this, even if Joe Biden is working in Israel's. And I will also say that Bibi Netanyahu is under multiple criminal investigations by his own government, and he knows that none of those can go forward while they're in a war.
Yeah.
So
and
what personal reason does he have to stop this?
He messed up their Supreme Court too, so where they can't really do much at all. So
he's a corrupt fascist. He's a fascist. He is a Jewish fascist, but he is a fascist. And there's a lot of great people in Israel.
He's as Jewish as the Klan is Christian.
May not have their may not know the situation as well as they think they do. It is a very propagandized government. But this isn't a religious war. This isn't about Jews or Muslims. If you're an anti-Semite, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
If you're an Islamophobe, go fuck yourself. Like, it is about the fact that everyone in that region should be able to live without worrying that they're going to be killed by either a political faction or group or splinter cell of the oppressed apartheid peoples that are trying to fight for liberation, or killed by the bombs of a colonial state. And while Joe Biden says a two-state solution there, that is the typical liberal response. I think that too much of the Palestinians' people land have been taken away over the 50 years to give them a viable state. Gaza and multiple other regions that the Palestinians live in are not connected. Like, you can't go through them without going through Israeli checkpoints. So, I mean, like, the two-state solution I don't think is viable, because where are they going to put the Palestinians? The Israelis have occupied almost
move
all
them out of move the settlers out. Like that's one. But
that's genocide. That's what they're trying to do now. They're trying to get them to leave. That's
well,
their
no,
homeland.
not killing them by like no. I'm saying like the settlers, the Jewish, the Israeli settlers that have gone in. Yeah, move the Israeli settlers. Everybody who violated the law, move them back. Like that, make them go back to where they came from. That sounds horrible, but
I think that
make Jerusalem a neutral zone.
Okay, but what about somebody who was a colonial settler? Their grandfather was, and they
sure,
stole
yeah, no. Then
you know what's gonna, does that grandkid deserve to lose that home they grew up in? Like, it's so complicated that the best way to solve it is just give everyone equal rights and the right to vote.
Yeah.
Like, yes, that will make it a Muslim majority country. But I guarantee you that whether it's been Iran in the 60s, you know, Iraq before it was overthrown, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Jerusalem for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Muslims and Jews can live in the same country and coexist. They do it in most Muslim countries.
They're fine mostly. There's extremists who are not on both sides, but the medium place people are fine.
Extremists here in America that would kill Jewish people if they could get away with it.
And they have
rabid anti-Semites. Yeah. And that's not to play into the idea that, well, Jews aren't safe anywhere. I think they are. I think they are safe in America comparatively, just like anybody else. I think black people are just as unsafe as Jewish people in America, and so are Muslims, and so are trans and gay people. Like this, the same people who target all those groups seem to target
any
all
marginalized
those,
person is not that safe,
right?
But they're safer than a lot of places.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I understand also like the generational trauma and knowing the history of the last 100 years of a lot of Jewish people feeling like they're not safe in any country and they want their own homeland. Mm-hmm. But you cannot displace other people in order to get your own homeland.
No.
And I understand that that's no one in the current generation's decision that happened originally, but the continuation of atrocity, apartheid, and exclusion of the Palestinian people does not make it a right. Like two wrongs do not make a right. And at some point, this is going to have to be solved. And the only way that's going to happen is with American leadership, in my opinion. And the way we do that is we put the thumb screws on Israel. We say, you want this defense funding money? You want to not having to pay for your own defense? You know, they pay for everybody's healthcare in Israel, yet we pay for all their tanks and rockets. So instead of paying for our own healthcare, you know, we're paying for that. Well, we could say that'll stop unless you move to have elections in the next 4 years where everyone gets to vote. Like we could put together a plan and do like they did with South Africa to reappropriate that land to everyone that lives there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's easily
that's going to take an American leader, and Joe Biden is not that person.
No, this won't happen until years down the line. Unfortunately, like
but I want an end to this current. I want an end to this current slaughter, right? Yeah. Like the 35,000 dead. 16,000 of them children, something like 8,000 of them mothers. Mm-hmm. None of those people, a lot of those people didn't even vote for Hamas when the election happened back in 2006 or 7. I forget when.
Election wasn't
maybe 5,
fair.
Maybe 2006. It was somewhere right there. It was Bush era, into Bush era. But a lot of these people never had a choice in Hamas representing them or being the governmental structure. Certainly none of the children did. Yeah. And either way, even if they did vote for it, I don't believe that average German citizens should have been firebombed or average Tokyo citizens should have been firebombed, even though they helped put their fascist governments in charge. I don't believe in killing people that aren't soldiers. Crazy concept. But I think in a war, only soldiers should be able to kill each other.
That is how war generally goes.
Rights. Yeah. I think otherwise it's kind of a slaughter, right?
War,
it's genocide.
Fun fact, also not great. But some would say bad. I'm going to say it's bad. War's bad.
We have wild takes here.
Yeah.
Do not kill innocent civilians.
Maybe don't kill a soldier.
No matter who you are.
Even if you're another soldier, maybe just like hug it out.
But Joe Biden isn't going to fix this problem, so all I can expect from Joe Biden is to push this actual ceasefire line. Yeah. But he needs to do it. Whether that's behind the scenes and we don't know about it with threats, he needs to start telling Netanyahu that this has to change now because he's going to lose the election otherwise.
He's behind the scenes calling people a-holes and things like that. Don't worry. He's behind the scenes. He's got a lot of energy. And in real life, apparently, too. You give him enough drugs. So let's go get to the last bit.
We ate our vegetables. Yeah. It is time for dessert.
Yeah, and I think we need to go to the kitchen to get some dessert, right? We need to go to a very specific kitchen.
You usually do find dessert in the kitchen.
Yeah. Luckily, our next guest is in the kitchen. Maybe she could make us some. Like she's a woman.
No,
could she make us some food while she's in the kitchen? Because that's what the Republicans wanted us to say. No,
Yep.
no.
Not gonna get chip clipped on that one.
Yeah. God.
Well, anyways, coming
Katie
straight
Britt.
from some upper middle class to lower rich class kitchen
In
backdrop.
Alabama. Green screen.
Is it Alabama?
I can't tell if it's a green screen. I don't think it is, but oh my gosh.
Right.
This was,
We'll
I've heard described as the worst Lifetime actress you've ever seen. Again, highly recommend you look at Megyn Kelly's response to this. We reposted it on America the Podcast Presents on TikTok, so you can find it there too. But it was something. And what was it? Oh, the other thing. The I think this is SNL's the angriest woman in the Target parking lot. Like the breathiness of it all. It was fantastic. So
I mean, like it was essentially like if community college theater was given the state of like, you know, the girl in community college theater or in high school theater who was like thought she was a star.
Mm-hmm. Was told by way too many parents that she was a star, and
and just overacted every single scene, just ate up those scenes.
Oh, the female kid, the girl character, the sister character in the Avatar: The Last Airbender, the movie. That is what I pin her to. If you remember that terrible M. Night Shyamalan movie, that girl who played what's her name in the movie? Is it Sora, the waterbender girl? In Avatar. Katara, sorry. I haven't watched it in a long time. Sorry. Katara, the girl who played Katara. Sorry, it's heresy. There is no Warren Bossing say. But the Katara character in that is such a bad actor that she reminded me of that and reminded me of this woman. That is where my mind immediately went, the acting of it all. We can do it, Aang. I half expected her to say we can do it, Aang. And so play it if you got it, baby.
You're here first, Tim. Ready to pick on any child actor who is not directed correctly.
Dude, she was bad. No, you were bad. You're bad at reading lines. Okay.
My husband, Wesley, and I just watched President Biden's State of the Union address from our living room. And what we saw was the performance of a permanent politician who has actually been in office for longer than I've been alive.
Our kids are named Caden, Tristan, Tristan, and
out of touch right now.
Beckett with 7 different Ks.
The American dream has turned into a nightmare for so many families.
This is Hermione and this is Khaleesi.
Abandoning our allies in his disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan to desperately pushing another dangerous deal with Iran.
I mean, as an actor
Biden
myself, whisper talk
failed.
is like, it's...
We've become a nation in retreat. We know that President Biden didn't just create this border crisis. He invited it with 94 executive actions in his first 100 days. Just think about Laken Riley. In my neighboring state of Georgia, this beautiful 22-year-old nursing student.
Don't smile while you tell this story.
Okay, she's also wearing a green top, and I mean, the one thing you do not put someone in on camera is a green fucking
by
shirt.
one of the millions of illegal border crossers President Biden chose
You're
to
Republican.
release
We're red.
into our homeland. Tonight,
women
President
really
Biden
wear white too, because it's like
finally said her
Democrats.
name.
it's the color.
But he refused to take responsibility
It's
for his
Women's
own
Month right
actions.
now, I think.
Mr. President, enough is enough.
Wednesday was a few days ago.
Innocent Americans are
Suffrage
dying,
colors.
and you only have yourself to blame, sadly.
I can't even focus on it. It's so bad.
Cut away. She doesn't need. We just go watch it. Go watch Scarlett
Sleeping
Johansson on
bags.
SNL. Like, I don't care if you're an SNL fan or not, but Scar Joe on that was like spitting image. I would say. Oh my goodness. I'll wait to it's so, what was one of ScarJo's lines was like, and for no reason at all, I'm going to start talking real seductively. I'm like, yeah, what was her deal, dude? Like, oh man, like I know you always get a junior senator or whatever, like to do your response, you know, your rising star kind of a thing. But what in the world?
Pick for Trump's VP. She's the one that he's pushing.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, that's not happening.
So she's like the establishment. She's like the Pence of this round. She's the one that the establishment wants Trump to pick.
Got it.
But yeah,
okay.
that just sank.
No, that sank that chance.
That.
Oh my God. Yeah, I thought Trump was going to go for either Tim Scott or.
No way. Tim Scott's way.
No way. I had heard that they had picked a woman. Maybe this was who they were talking about.
It's gonna be and it's gonna be gonna be someone who's a firebrand, who's like a loyalist, right? Like
that's right. Carrie Lake.
Tim Scott ran against her. Ran against him. I don't think it'll be anybody who ran against him. I think that it's going to be someone he thinks is a true lapdog, right?
Yeah.
Because last time Pence didn't do what he said when he needed him to.
Yeah.
So I think that it's going to be a lapdog.
It won't be Carrie Lake either. I take that back. She's running for Senate. She's running for Senate right now and is about to lose because Kirsten Sinema dropped out, and she was the one that was going to take the votes away from the Democrats. So, like, it's just
one Republican for another.
Yeah, one basic Republican for one absolute psychopath who like almost became governor. And I will say,
you're right. A psychopath versus a completely bought out empty suit.
Sure, yeah, I'd rather take the bought out empty suit. Not gonna lie, like, but at least in the bought out empty suit that won the governorship. Not saying that governor is, but
sure. But those empty suits led to these crazies being
100%. But I will say elections. They have their consequences, good and bad. In this case for Arizona, good, nothing to do with this episode. But the governor of Arizona, who would have been Carrie Lake, recently announced that they are going to buy medical debt from the government, which is a program that you can do. John Oliver famously did it for $30 million. And that $30 million is going to cancel $1.2 or $2 billion in medical debt for that state. So Carrie Lake would not have done that. A Democrat did. Democrats do those things. God damn it. Like,
well, and it speaks to, once again, even if the individual is a horrible person, just having Democrats who appoint people to bureaucratic positions and pass policies that, even if they're not great, even if they're not revolutionary, even if they're not transformative, which we should do, and I am for pushing, and if anyone can find a way, I'm there, general strike, whatever. But the importance of the things that just having not a Republican in office provides is worth voting for the Democrats. Now, I agree. Unless we tell the Democrats that we'll withhold our votes, they won't ever get anything done. No. But you notice that things are now getting done. Ceasefire is actually being discussed. Yeah. Legalization of marijuana is being discussed. A national abortion law, like access to abortion, is being discussed. Yeah. Because Joe Biden started to get worried.
Did you mention that
we were bitching about all these
too? Because I know Biden just had tweeted, and I know this is nothing, but it's that no one should be arrested for possession or use of cannabis. It was one of his things I saw today. I'm like, good, do something. Sign an executive order.
3 months too late. I would have launched this the moment the primary started because we all knew what the outcome was going to be. But this is what he should have been doing the whole time, and I'm glad he's doing now, even if it's too late. But I don't think it's too late. But I think that
it's not too late.
It's bordering on being a bad political move. I think that, the fact is like the Democrats should be blowing Donald Trump out of the water. Like he's a fucking joke and he's a cult leader and he's insane. And they should be beating him by 10 points, but we ran Joe Biden. Yeah.
Like Seth Meyers did a great thing where he went on, like, for the beginning of his Closer Look for like a minute and a half of listing everything that he's done. And it was a long goddamn list, comprehensive list of like. No,
he's one of the most accomplished.
It's insane.
Democratic presidents he's more accomplished than Obama.
No, I mean, the bad shit Trump has done. I'm saying that's what I was talking Seth had done. Like, but that's why it's baffling.
Past I was in that Hanoi Hilton, I was like John McCain being tortured. Like, I don't remember any of that. Like, I just took it to my safe place and buried it deep in my brain.
Yeah.
I think that this speech, this State of the Union, showed just based on what Biden focused on: taxing the wealthy, abortion, the Israeli-Gaza conflict. Like, these things were things that we were yelling about, that we were saying, we're worried that you haven't tackled this stuff, that you're not working on it.
And now he's talking about it.
And now he's talking about it. Because we're...
And I think that's the difference between
Democrats and Republicans. They're both capitalists, imperialists, that there's plenty of things we should change. But when it comes to general elections, I'm almost always going to vote for the Democrat. Now, I think we should primary the hell. Always.
Absolutely. Always primary.
And I think that we should work our way up by putting millennials and Gen Z and eventually Gen Alpha into positions of power at the local, state, and federal level to slowly take over that party to become a more left-wing party.
That's how you do it.
That is not going to happen overnight, and that is something that we have to start actively trying to campaign to do as leftists.
Don't build a new party, infiltrate the current one. It's got the infrastructure and the administration.
The evangelicals did it to the Republican Party.
Exactly. Why don't we do that to the Democrats?
We absolutely should.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's pretty much it for what I got on the State of the Union.
That's all I've got, and I was just I hope you had fun rehashing this with us. Definitely subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and vote in the primaries that are still coming up. Several states have president primary and then the House, which is I'm sure there's a reason. I'm not a fan, but I
would say vote uncommitted until a ceasefire happens.
Vote uncommitted as much as you can because it works. I know that up until. As of Super Tuesday, as you'll hear on America the Podcast, comes back today. As you're watching this episode, it's back in its original form. Go listen to that. But as they mentioned on that episode, 250,000 people voted uncommitted, just on Super Tuesday, as well as that may have just been Super Tuesday as a whole, not counting the 100,000 people in Michigan and all the other people who had voted previously on that. It works. It got Biden's attention, and there's still more people to keep voting. And there's still more primaries to vote in. So go do it. Listen to this show while you're doing it. It's fun. We like it. You will too. You do like it. You do. So, or I don't know.
Do you like our show?
Yeah, you do like our show. We're leftists. We're trying to convince you to, we're brainwashing you. We're not brainwashing you. I don't know. It's the end, and I've got to pee. So, thanks for watching, and we'll see you.
Want to form a commune of lovers with me, audience, all of you. You will all be my lover.
You know what? Why not? Let's do it. There's people South Boston doing it here. Let's fucking go. All right, have fun. We'll see you next week over on They're Not Sending Their Best with Nikki Haley. Bye. Yeah. You've been listening to America the Conversation with hosts Andrew Turner and Tim Philippi. The show was created by Andrew Turner and Tim Philippi and is a production of Shway Media and America the Podcast Presents. Any news sources referenced in this episode are listed in the show notes. America the Conversation is mixed and edited by Tim Philippi at Shway Media Studios in Austin, Texas. The show's theme song is by Timmy Two Step. Executive producers for America the Conversation are Andrew Turner, Tim Philippi, and Alana Matos. For more information, please visit shwaymedia.com and americathepodcast.com. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved.
This has been a production of Shway Media, all rights reserved. For more information, please visit shwaymedia.com.